So you throw a few panels in the buck, fill the spaces in between the wires, and you start having something that looks like a car. Welcome to iNVision Prototypes, guys. What do you think of that rear quarter panel? That came out nice, eh? 90% of that panel's finished. Everything's welded. We're just in the final stages of metal finishing, and there's still some kind of wavy things ahead of that rear wheel that need to be addressed. That panel's coming off the car so we can work on the trunk hinges and get the structures developed for that, as well as the trunk structure itself, the part that holds the trunk skin. We finished the trunk skin, you saw that last time, but now we have to take and actually do something to hold the trunk skin. Get a good look at it because you won't be seeing it for a while. And that brings us to this front one. We have to do the exact same thing that we did back there and join all these pieces together. Now this one's a little bit more complicated because you have so many more things going on. This rear section of the front fender, this needs to be wheeled up in this area to allow this leading edge to dive down and mate up with this panel, the front panel. That front panel is perfect. We don't need to do anything with it. And actually we have a jump start on it where it rolls into the headlight area. You might be looking at this area here and seeing something off. And you're right. We only rolled over 90-degree flange here. We didn't roll it over all the way so that we can take the door skin off and finish off the work within the door cavity. The back edge has been hemmed over all the way, but the front edge, we left it at 90 degrees, and that's changed the shape of the door panel. As soon as you roll it over the rest of the way, that'll sit where it needs to be, and we'll have that 3/16 gap all the way down. And again, the same is for this flange here. It's rolled over the flat bar on the buck, but after we take the buck out, roll over the rest of the way, attach it to the structure that's going to be created within that area, it'll sit where it needs to be. I figured before we go ahead and assemble all the sections to create the front fender, we take everything off to give us access to work on some of the structural components that are going to hold the fender on the car. Case in point being this template through here. This was created to hold the back edge of the fender to the vehicle. So this is going to slip into a hem that we create at the back edge, and we're using the OG bracket the Mustang used to hold its fenders on the car. So once the door is bolted to the vehicle, to the post, we take the fender, slip it on, do up the one fastener from the back, 2 fasteners down here, install the wheel liner, and the fender's attached. And as for this section up here, the wire frame is actually in our way at the moment. So once the wire frame comes out, then we'll have access to this inner edge where the fender rolls down into the hood area, and we're going to create a piece that goes in through there, several bolts, and the fender will get bolted on in that area via that piece. So let's get working on the front fender. So for now, I'm going to take and pull this template off the car. We'll make that up later. And we're going to start assembling the parts. Now, most of everything should clip into place the way we had it earlier. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take and cut off this material that extends inside the fender cavity. It's not necessary, just extra material, but we are going to leave a few tabs so we can reuse the mounting screws and hold the parts together. The panel's been trimmed up and washed in the wheel for the final time, and I'm pretty confident at this point that we can start joining things together. Not much more we can do to it other than make it one piece now. All of our witness lines are lining up. And just temporarily put a clamp here until I get set up with the welding machine. Now the welding machine is going to create some noise, obviously, so I'm going to explain what we're going to do, and then you can just sit back and watch the process. We're going to take and line up this edge here, starting from the bottom, and work our way up. You can see the gap is pretty big. The clamp is holding us at the moment, but we're going to take and steer the panel in, work the joint into itself, and just place about 4 or 5 tacks just to hold these pieces together. Can't really get a clamp in here, but we can flush that up right there. And then I'll take that screw out, move that down. Just helps us hold things in place. Right, yeah. Okay. So as that old adage says, Old pair of shoes is always more comfortable than new pair. And my old helmet, I'm used to it, so I'm gonna go back to that one. I wanna get this done for you guys. This is always the trickiest part, lining everything up precisely. All these edges are joining up very well with each other. It's just a matter of adding more tacks, plenishing them, and getting all this curve perfect. And then once the fender comes off, we'll cut the tab off on the back side of this piece. So, time to get this front panel on. I'm not too worried about clamping that very edge right there, only because we're going to be cutting that off later. There. Okay, we'll leave that. Get some more clamps down below. Got to work this panel in and join up with this one here. Just checking the gaps between the buck, and it's sitting quite well. Okay, nice tight through there. Now this opening here, we rolled that over last time, and we didn't tighten it up too tight, so it's still creating tension within the panel. Once we tighten that up, and the panel is basically situated where it needs to, you won't have this stress in the panel. It's one of the beauties of a wireframe buck. Okay. So you have to constantly be reading your panel. And this vice grip here is holding that from settling down. So pop this one off. Okay, so now we're back to where we were, actually a bit ahead of where we were 2.31 hours ago. This front fender section is now part of the side section. We've taken and trimmed away this excess part that used to overlap, used to sit right in here. We took and trimmed that away, and we lined everything up and tacked it. But we couldn't do any of this until we made a correction back here. And this little issue resulted from me washing out this panel to correct a few reflections. It was a bit flat here, so to correct those reflections, we wheeled this up. And that kind of curved the panel a bit more than it was originally. And our alignment marks, even though we went by them here, that threw what was going on here. That's why it's really crucial to take, and after you wheel something, make adjustments to your alignment marks, because the alignment marks prior to wheeling is what you used to have. And if you make any changes, those have to be adjusted as well. This area through here, this has been trimmed back when we had the panel off. Now we have to take and trim off the excess material around this flange, but we're gonna roll this after we get the top done. So I'm just pulling these clamps off. I'm gonna see if anything moves. Oh, there you go. Okay, so this is the top piece, and you can see there's all kinds of lovely marks all over the place. This is from when we scribed things the first time around before disassembling everything. We're gonna have to take and readjust these marks. I got a feeling this panel is gonna get a lot smaller very quickly. Okay, well that's a good thing. This whole leg back here from this point back can be removed. Okay, so things are falling into place nicely. We need to take and trim off a little bit of the material that's shooting up on this panel and about 1 inch to nothing on this panel, and kind of creep the edge over and start preparing to scribe the two pieces to each other. So this 3/4 inch tape is just here to move the line over for me. There. So I need to be able to see this edge over here when we put the panel down on top. Okay. Gotta trim away a little bit more from this panel, in the front and the back. Okay. Going to follow the outside edge of the tape underneath, and that was going to give us the cut line for the tape that's on top. Okay, it's going to be close. Like I said, we might have to rescribe it again afterwards. Just make sure that's stuck. I try to move off the wireframe buck, or the wireframe that's underneath here, so I can get a dolly in underneath after I pull out the liner and plenish those tacks so that we have a nice, nice joint. See, this is jumping up because haven't folded this inside edge over all the way. Afterwards, this edge will get relieved by just adjusting it to where it needs to be, and this will settle down. Now this line has to be very precise. Wandering 1/16 of an inch will throw your curve. Running the Sharpie up against the masking tape, and after you peel the masking tape off, gives you a very sharp, definite line. Guys, want some cuttings? Try and keep up with the housekeeping, because otherwise you get inundated with little burrs and things kicking around, and don't want to get hurt, right? Okay. If we start at the front and pinch that down and start tacking it there, check this out. You probably can't through my arm, but if we pinch that down and start tacking it, you're gonna have this big hoop through here. So what we need to do is start at the middle and work our way out. And the other thing I want to do is just slip the dolly up underneath here, just plenish this curvature, because it's coming in a little too sharp and it's not mating up with that panel the way I need it to. So all we're doing right now, we shrunk it earlier using those tucks, and now what we're doing is stretching it and allowing it to come back up. Okay, that looks a lot better. And what if I told you guys that we have to make another fender for the driver's side? So this is just the first one for the coupe. In a little while, we'll be starting a pickup truck, and well, we're gonna have to form up the whole thing all over again for the truck. That'll get plenished together and smoothed out afterwards. What we need to work on now is the front flow from this panel into this panel. There. This top piece is ready to install. I've scribed the front, trimmed it, and it's just about there. But before we do that, I'm going to take and plenish these welds, grind them, plenish them. There's no catch there from panel to panel, but up in the top here, there's a small depression. And if that gets welded to this panel in that position, you're going to have a lot of headaches to fix that later on. The reflections, I'm sure, on your screen aren't looking too bad from panel to panel here, but I would just want to take and address these and smooth it out, and you'll see the difference in a few minutes. So we're going to start by just knocking the tops off each of these tacks, just a little bit. Leave them a little bit high so we still have room to plenish them. So there's a rod right through here, so I move my joint to the other side of the rod, and that way I can still work it. And that's it. Let's see how it looks from your side. Yeah, much better. And while we're at it, we'll take and cut this flange off. Not all the way, the rod's up and through here, so we have plenty of material. I'm just gonna take 2 bites at it. The waviness in this panel is being caused by the material. There's a little bit of length to this edge, the way we rolled it, because we're gonna be rolling it up underneath and we need to stretch that edge. So that waviness is caused by this long edge here. As soon as it gets tucked into where it needs to be, that'll get corrected. So there's a flat bar in the back here. That's why it's making it difficult to finish these 2 surfaces. So what's going to happen is once we get a few tacks on here, we'll take the fender off and we'll finish that off after. But right now I need to get things to line up and just to make sure that everything fits. This isn't the problem. That's going to work out very well up there. It's this area here that's a little bit tricky right now. So we've got the first 2 tacks on these panel sections. I'm going to basically go through and work my way out towards the ends, tack these 2 panels together, tack that together, and I'll bring you guys in once everything's kind of finalized, but not final welded, because that'll be for another day. We want to take and plenish this out. We have to make sure that everything flows from panel to panel. With the tacks in the front, across the top, and here at the back completed, we can very carefully take this panel and remove it from the buck. It's going to be tricky because I've already started rolling a few more flanges, that one there. This one will be done later, and the back flange. So it's going to be a bit tricky to get this to pop off the buck. So we're going to take our time and just kind of peel it off. There's one clamp on the inside holding it, but that's it. Well, one down here. Not too bad. Didn't jump off the car. Some of you guys might be thinking that we're using clamps to force the panels into each other before we weld it or tack it. If you ever cut a panel apart, an OEM panel, and you cut it through a certain area, it'll open up like a clamshell because it does have a certain amount of surface tension or tension within the panel to maintain that particular shape. The same thing here. So we're not applying excessive amounts of force to clamp everything together, just enough to bring the edges together. And it's at this point, like I said, that we're going to pull it off the buck. Hopefully it stays intact, none of the tacks break, and then we can start working these areas into each other. Let's see what happens. No, I thought we had one more clamp. Strange. Somebody must have stolen it. Hey, look at that. We do have a tack there. Let's buzz that off. Look at that. Really carefully, just take it off. And there we go. One front fender joined together. So now the work is going to start in joining up all these surfaces, making sure that they're flush, and then afterwards, TIG welding everything up. All right, so give me a few minutes. I'll get this panel cleaned up, planished out, and we'll wrap the episode up with the panel back on the buck. Now, if we're lucky, they should clip in from the front. Uh-oh, caught the glove. Okay, and back in here. Hey, that's not bad. There we go. Now, we're pushing on a little tab that's down here that I rolled up on the rocker, so it kind of wants to jump back up. But I'd say that fits really well. And the curves don't look too shabby. Fantastic, I'm really happy with this. That's all coming in very well up here. And nice and smooth. Let me get a clamp on that, actually. I was going to stop this episode at this point here, but I'd like to take and roll this lip over. We're at a stage now, everything's sitting where it needs to. Not too much more shaping we're going to be doing with this panel. So we can go ahead and pin this perimeter here and start rolling it over with a hammer and dolly. As I mentioned before, I can't get a clamp in here, so I'll put a little tack. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take this lip that extends down past the rod of the wireframe buck, back the outside up with the dolly. You've seen me do this before. And we're going to take and roll that edge over. And we're going to work it over in several passes to get a nice consistent bend all the way around. Plug your ears. It's going to be loud. See, what we're doing is we're stretching this edge to allow it to go inside. So earlier we had a kind of a wavy effect going on. That was fine because we have to stretch it even more to get it to roll inside. And all we're doing right now is just tightening up the radius a bit sharper because it's a little bit soft. You can just hear the rod in the background when I'm bumping up against it. I'm not caving this in to create a sharp edge. Very good. Now we're going to very gingerly take and roll over this edge that mates up with the grill. This one's going to be a bit trickier because we're going over 90 degrees, unlike that one there. just about there. And what we're going to have to do is take and get another dowel lift from behind and take care of all those ripples there, because just the material actually has to be shrunk a little bit. Across the bottom we have too much material, so that'll have to be trimmed off. I'll probably do that next time when I take the fender off. And then once the wire frame is gone, we can take care of this hood line and straighten that out, because there's a piece of flat bar in the way and we can't roll this edge over all the way in that location. If you remember earlier, I had a vice grip there and that kind of held that. So we're taking, once the wire frame is gone, roll that down. Hope we can get this fender off the car now. We'll find out next time when I take it off to do the final welding. All right, guys, well, that was quite a workout rolling those flanges over, but things are shaping up really, really well on this front fender. I had a bit of a hiccup in the beginning in terms of alignment, but once that was addressed, everything else fell into place and it's coming out quite nice. In terms of next steps, we're gonna have to split all the welds once again and work all those out, plenish them smooth, make sure all the surfaces are perfect, and then bring it back and clamp it on the buck. It'll be tacked on the buck, but when we work it, we'll work on the bench and then bring it back. And you can see how well it fits. It fits like a glove on here. Like, there are no bolts holding it. I don't think any clamps at the front. Nope, no clamps there. Overall, it's sitting here naturally. When we go to final TIG weld this, we're going to clamp everything right to the buck and use the buck as a fixture to prevent it from warping. We might get some distortion around the weld, but in terms of the overall fender losing its shape, we should be fine that way. And we'll start the weld and go from one end to the other, weld everything up, and then take it off and finish it. But we're not going to get to that just yet. I'm going to work on the passenger side fender, get those pieces that have been shaped up, but we have to get them assembled, just like this side here. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's quite a productive one. We went through a number of recharge cycles on the camera batteries and the mics, but we got her done. Thanks for watching and take care. And if you enjoyed what you saw, please hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. See you guys.